Imagine this. You've just had a light dinner, and before heading to bed you pour yourself a glass of deep red beet juice, believing you're doing the best thing for your heart and memory. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? For years, beets have been praised as nature's gold for circulation, helping lower blood pressure and improving blood flow. And for younger folks, especially athletes, that's true. But let me pause you for a moment. Once you're in your 60s, your body doesn't respond the way it did in your 20s. At this age, the nitrates in beets can turn into a double-edged sword. When metabolized, they become nitric oxide, which relaxes your blood vessels and drops your blood pressure. On paper, that seems like a benefit, but if you're already taking blood pressure medication, this sudden drop can trigger dizziness, fainting, or even a silent stroke while you're asleep. I remember one of my patients, Mr. Arthur, age 73. His daughter encouraged him to drink beet juice every night, calling it good for the brain and blood. He trusted her advice and kept the habit for months. Then one night he woke up dizzy, his blood pressure dangerously low, and he collapsed right there in his bedroom. When we examined him at the hospital, we discovered that the high nitrate load from the beets, combined with his medication, had pushed his blood pressure out of control in his sleep. You see, what we often think of as a tonic can sometimes turn into a hidden trigger for serious problems. Science shows that in older adults, excess nitrates can lower blood pressure to the point where the brain doesn't get enough oxygen. And the most dangerous part? It often happens at night when you're asleep, when no one is around to notice or step in. Let me ask you, have you ever woken up in the middle of the night feeling lightheaded, your head spinning, unable to steady yourself? If you have, consider it your body's warning signal. Now, this doesn't mean you must avoid beets forever, but timing and portion matter. A little during the day may be helpful. Making it a nightly ritual, though, can put you at risk. As we age, our bodies become like fine crystal, still beautiful, still valuable, but more fragile than before. One wrong move at the wrong time can cause a crack. And my role, after walking alongside thousands of patients, is to remind you, pay attention to the smallest details in your daily habits, because sometimes those little choices can decide the quality of the years you still have ahead. And if you think beets are just a small health trap, let me share another habit I often see in my older patients: frozen or pre-packaged French fries. Many people over 50 believe that if the fries are oven-baked instead of deep-fried, they must be healthier. Some even tell me, "Doctor, I don't eat fast food anymore. I only eat the oven fries I buy at the supermarket." But the truth is, these convenient fries are loaded with hidden salt and trans fats, two silent enemies of your heart and blood vessels. I want you to picture this. Every time you eat those fries that seem so harmless, your bad cholesterol, LDL, quietly rises. LDL acts like a layer of sludge, slowly sticking to the walls of your arteries, month after month, year after year. Your once flexible, open blood vessels harden and narrow, and then one day, all it takes is a small blood clot to block the flow to your brain, bringing on a stroke as suddenly as a lightning strike. I remember one patient, Mrs. Margaret, age 68, a homemaker who loved her kitchen. She believed that baking frozen fries at home was a safer choice than eating fried food outside. But when her blood tests came back, her LDL was alarmingly high, and the ultrasound showed her carotid arteries had already thickened. She was shocked. "I thought I had chosen the healthier path," she said. The truth is, sometimes convenience is the biggest trap of all. Processed foods aren't designed for your health. They're made to last longer on shelves, keep their color, taste good, and stay cheap. But over the years, those very qualities build the foundation for atherosclerosis, the hardening of the arteries that leads straight to strokes no one ever wants. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever opened the freezer at night, pulled out a bag of fries, and thought you were choosing a healthy snack? If your answer is yes, then perhaps it's time to rethink. Because health doesn't always come from what's easiest. It comes from knowing what to put down. And if frozen fries are a trap of convenience, then spinach, the leafy green so often praised as a superfood, is another reminder of an important truth. Not everything that's good for you should be eaten in excess. Spinach, so often praised as a powerhouse of iron, heart health, and even tied to the image of strength. But inside the clinic, I've seen its other side. When eaten in excess, your body is hit with a shower of oxalates, a natural compound found in spinach. These oxalates bind with calcium to form tiny, sharp crystals that quietly build up inside your blood vessels. Picture your arteries like the water pipes in your home. If you drop a little sand into them every day, at first nothing seems wrong. But over time, the sand clumps together, narrowing the pipe and slowing the flow of water. That's exactly what oxalates do. They calcify your arteries, stripping away their flexibility. And once blood vessels harden, a stroke becomes not a question of if, but when. I think of Mr. Thomas, age 71, one of my patients. He had a daily habit of drinking spinach smoothies, believing it was his key to staying young. But eventually he came to me with joint pain, recurring kidney stones, and test results showing early calcification in his arteries. He was stunned to learn that what he trusted as his savior had turned into a silent enemy within his body. Have you ever found yourself in that situation, believing you were doing the right thing, only to realize you were quietly harming yourself? That's why I often remind my patients, not everything healthy should be eaten in unlimited amounts. With spinach, the problem isn't about banning it, but about balance. A few meals a week, paired with calcium-rich foods to reduce oxalate absorption, is perfectly safe. But making it a daily ritual, especially in smoothies or large servings, turns this superfood into a double-edged sword. And if spinach can quietly plant crystals that harden your arteries, then pickled cucumbers are another sweet deceiver, hiding behind that tangy crunch we all assume is harmless. I often see this in the refrigerators of families in their 60s and 70s. Jar of pickles or a few slices tucked into a sandwich at night. It seems so simple, so light. But the truth is, just a small serving can hold up to 800 milligrams of sodium. Think about that. That's nearly half the daily recommended limit in just a few bites of pickles. That sodium doesn't just disappear. It seeps into your blood vessels, raising the pressure on the arterial walls night after night. Research has shown that eating pickled vegetables regularly can harden arteries up to 32% faster. In younger people, the body may adapt for a while. But past 50, when your vessels have already lost some of their elasticity, it's like hammering again and again on an old worn water pipe. One day it cracks. I think of Mr. Allen, age 74, a retired bus driver. He used to joke that his meals were incomplete without a few slices of pickles. But one morning, his wife found him unable to lift his left arm, a classic sign of an ischemic stroke. When we ran the tests, his blood pressure and sodium levels were alarmingly high. And the biggest culprit, ironically, was the very side dish he cherished every night. Have you ever thought that just a few slices of pickles could lead to something so serious? Yet that's exactly the point. It's often the small, everyday foods we overlook that slowly steal our health. If pickles bring you a heavy load of salt in every bite, then canned tomatoes are another reminder that not every food with a vegetable label is as safe as it seems. Fresh tomatoes, you and I both know, are one of nature's true gifts, rich in lycopene, antioxidants, and protection for the heart. But once they're sealed in a can for convenience, their very nature changes. To preserve color and flavor, manufacturers often add a heavy dose of salt. Just 1 cup of canned tomatoes can contain up to 700 milligrams of sodium. And even more concerning, the metal lining of the can can release BPA, a chemical that seeps into the tomatoes themselves. Imagine this. Every time you eat them, it's not only the salt straining your blood vessels, but also the BPA slowly weakening their walls. The salt holds onto water, raising pressure. The BPA scratches away at the inner lining of your arteries. Together, it's like blowing up a balloon while scraping its surface at the same time. Sooner or later, that balloon will burst. I think of Mrs. Maria, age 69, who was always proud of cooking at home and avoiding fast food. But because of her busy schedule, she started using canned tomatoes to make spaghetti sauce each week. She never imagined that this familiar ingredient was tied to her dizzy spells and sudden spikes in blood pressure. Only when she was hospitalized did she realize it was this very convenience that had been wearing down her blood vessels for years. And I believe many of us are like Maria, thinking we're eating healthy, when in reality, the truth is quietly very different. Have you ever opened your pantry, seen a few cans of tomatoes and thought, this must be safer than eating out? If so, remember this. Sometimes the greatest risks aren't in the foods that look obviously harmful, but in the ones that seem the most harmless. If canned tomatoes make us pause because of their hidden salt and chemicals, then processed frozen foods tell another story, quieter but even more persistent. You know, when you walk into the supermarket, it's hard to resist the pull of convenience. Frozen pizzas, packaged meatballs, or pre-cooked potatoes that only need a few minutes in the microwave. Quick, easy, no thinking required. But that very quick and easy is the dagger hiding beneath the shiny wrapper. These foods are stripped of natural nutrients, but compensated with salt, unhealthy fats and preservatives to keep their taste and shelf life. For someone over 60 whose body is already more sensitive to sodium, eating a steady diet of processed frozen foods is like adding drop after drop of water into a cup that's already full. And one day the cup will overflow. In medicine, that's the moment when chronic high blood pressure sets in without you even realizing it. I once treated Mr. Reynolds, age 66, who had been living alone after losing his wife. He admitted to me that he survived almost entirely on frozen meals, not wanting to bother with cooking. At first it felt harmless, but over time he developed swollen legs, shortness of breath, and dangerously high blood pressure. He sighed. I didn't think I was eating salty food, just the packaged stuff from the store. The truth was, the hidden sodium in each serving had quietly built up day after day, turning his blood pressure into a ticking time bomb. Do you find yourself in a similar habit? Have you ever opened the freezer and thought that just heating something up was harmless without noticing how much salt and chemicals you were really taking in? If so, it's time to pause and reflect, because good health isn't found in convenience. It's found in the wise choices you make each day. If frozen processed foods are the silent culprits, sowing risk day by day, then kimchi and other fermented vegetables are a different kind of danger. Two-faced, celebrated as superfoods on one side, while hiding a threat few people ever suspect on the other. You know, kimchi has long been praised as a food rich in probiotics, good for digestion. But for those over 60, when blood vessels are already more fragile, a daily bowl of rice with kimchi can become a ticking time bomb. A large study in Korea found that older adults who ate kimchi every day had a 42% higher risk of stroke compared to those who only ate it occasionally. That number alone should make any of us stop and think. The main reason isn't hard to see. Kimchi and other pickled vegetables are loaded with salt, 700 to 800 milligrams in just a small serving. But it doesn't stop there. The fermentation process also produces histamine. Once inside the body, histamine causes blood vessels to expand unevenly. Some areas constrict while others balloon out. Picture the old pipes in your house. When water pressure suddenly changes, somewhere along the line a pipe is bound to burst. In the brain, that can mean a hemorrhage, a sudden stroke right in the middle of what seemed like a harmless family meal. I think of Mrs. Eleanor, age 70, who truly believed kimchi was her secret to longevity. Every evening, she enjoyed several small bowls with her rice. Then one afternoon during a family dinner, she collapsed at the table. We diagnosed her with a hemorrhagic stroke. When we looked deeper, it was clear that the years of salt buildup from her daily kimchi had pushed her blood vessels to their breaking point. Have you ever imagined that a traditional dish, passed down through generations, could turn into a health hazard in later years? The truth is, it all comes down to moderation. A little kimchi a few times a week can aid digestion, But making it a daily habit, especially at night, is like placing a live bomb inside your arteries. And if kimchi or pickled vegetables surprise us with their hidden load of salt and histamine, celery, a food that seems so harmless, turns out to be another silent culprit lurking in plain sight. Most people think of celery as the perfect late-night snack, low in calories, crisp, often paired with a little peanut butter. I've had many patients tell me, "Doctor, I gave up chips and sweets. Now I just snack on celery. I must be healthy, right?" But the truth is, celery carries more natural sodium than most realize. A single large stalk can have around 50 milligrams of salt, and who stops at just one? A few stalks before bedtime may be enough to send your nighttime blood pressure soaring. I remember Mr. Edgar, age 70, who proudly told me he had abandoned potato chips and cookies, keeping only celery with peanut butter as his nightly ritual. He laughed and said, "This is my healthiest habit." Yet over the years his blood pressure kept creeping higher. Then one night, he woke with a pounding headache, blurred vision, and ended up in the emergency room. Doctors traced part of the problem back to the hidden sodium in his so-called healthy snack. You see, after age 60, the body is like a machine that has worked a lifetime. Just a little extra pressure can throw it off balance. Eating celery during the day alongside meals is usually fine, but making it a nightly habit, especially right before bed, gives your blood pressure every reason to rise out of control. So let me ask you, have you ever felt confident that you were choosing a smart snack without paying attention to the tiny numbers hidden inside it? Often it's the small overlooked details that trigger the biggest consequences. And if celery can quietly push your blood pressure higher through the night, another habit, seemingly harmless but very common among people over 50, can strain the heart even more. Drinking energy drinks or strong tea before bed. I've heard countless patients say, "Doctor, I get sleepy too early in the evening, so I make a strong cup of tea to stay alert, or sometimes I drink half a can of an energy drink so I can read or watch the news." It sounds simple enough, but in reality, caffeine and stimulants are exactly what force the heart to overwork. They speed up the heartbeat, constrict blood vessels, and throw blood pressure into chaos, like a piece of music played off rhythm. Imagine this. While your body is trying to rest, every organ slowing down to recover, caffeine is forcing your heart and blood vessels into overdrive. This imbalance creates the perfect setting for a nighttime stroke. Silent, but merciless. I remember Mr. Walter, 65, who loved working late. He often drank an energy drink before tackling his paperwork, thinking he just needed a little boost. But one night, he suddenly collapsed right at his desk, only saved because he was rushed to the hospital in time. Later, he told me with regret, "I never thought such a small habit could nearly cost me everything." Do you have this habit yourself? A strong cup of tea or a can of energy drink may feel like your nighttime companion. But in truth, it's like throwing fuel onto a room already filled with smoke, just waiting to ignite into disaster. At this stage of life, what your body needs is not artificial energy, but peace, real rest, the kind that allows your heart and brain to recover. Now, after walking with you through these everyday traps, from beets, spinach, celery, to kimchi, pickles, canned tomatoes, frozen convenience foods, and even strong tea or energy drinks, I want to pause with you and reflect. Stroke never knocks on the door to announce its arrival. It comes like an uninvited guest, while you're sleeping, while you're having dinner with family, or while you're reading a book at night. And the saddest part is this. So many cases could have been prevented if only we had paid closer attention to what we put into our bodies each day. I've been a doctor for over 30 years. I've sat beside the hospital beds of thousands of patients. I've seen the regret in their eyes and in the eyes of their families when they realized that one small daily habit contributed to a life-altering event. And I don't want you or anyone you love to ever go through that. You see, good health doesn't depend on grand, heroic decisions, It lives in the small ordinary choices we make every single day. A stalk of celery with lunch may be fine, but making it a nightly snack can be risky. A little kimchi each week may be harmless, but eating it daily can be dangerous. The difference between medicine and poison often comes down to just two things: dosage and timing. I want you to remember this. At 50 or 60, our bodies are like a garden that has weathered many seasons. It needs gentle care, balance, and consistency. It can no longer withstand constant storms. So choose foods that nourish, not ones that test your limits. And after watching this video, I hope you'll ask yourself, which of these habits am I repeating every day? And am I willing to change it, to protect my memory, my heart, and my future? Because you deserve to live healthy, clear-minded, and free in every moment of your later years. Don't let foods that seem harmless steal that away from you.